thank you for everybody that is on. For the one person, we have two people on. So one of the things I've been studying a lot the last year is how to tell a story, and I've been working on my own personal story myself. I worked with a coach as well, so I'm helping my friend's wife, my best friend's wife, who had she had a double bilateral mastectomy. She just recently lost her job, so she's trying to rediscover herself as well. So I'm helping her with her story. So yeah, I'm happy to help you with that. And again, by no means am I an expert, but sometimes it's good to have that outside eye,
Right.
where I know you, but I don't know you super well. So it's good to have that outside eye and somebody else that can just
Yes.
fill in the pieces where sometimes when we're telling our own story, we sort of gloss over some of the important things because we think that it's not important, or everybody does that or knows that, and it's like no. People need to hear the struggle. Number two, what was it that really brought you through, right? Because there's a couple things that you're going to share here today that are very powerful, and yeah, like the little thing you sent me over, like you sort of glossed over a little bit of it, but I'm going to bring it out today. So
Okay. Yeah, I wish I had written as I went through it, but
that's
I
okay.
didn't.
No. So just keep some tissues by yourself, just in case you need them. Okay, we are live now.
Okay.
Hey there, this is Dr. Evan Osar with Fitness Education Seminars, also the Institute for Integrative Health and Fitness Education. One of our goals, Janice Maddock, my wife and I, one of our goals when we started Fitness Education Seminars and now the Institute for Integrative Health and Fitness Education is to bring you great education and also great individuals. We were fortunate that we get to meet a lot of great individuals, people who are out there being leaders, bringing people together, creating a positive message, especially in this time of COVID and civil unrest and economic uncertainty. So I'm super excited to be joined by my friend and colleague, Jamie Nichols of DCAC. Hi there, Jamie.
Hi.
Thanks so much
Thank
for
you
being
for
on.
having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. I know you're on vacation with your family, so I truly appreciate you taking the time out to join us here.
All right. Well, I just first wanted to thank you for inviting me to speak to this group. I'm here to give you some tips for thriving in times of trouble. So I just started sharing my story, so I'm a little new at this, but I appreciate you guys all listening, and I'm just going to go through it. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions.
I will.
Okay. Well, I started dance when I was 3 years old, so I guess you could say a career in the fitness industry was a natural transition. When I was 15 and still taking dance, my mother left being a preschool teacher to become a massage therapist. She ended up working at a local gym in Mechanicsville called Club Fit. I remember having an internship requirement in my anatomy class in high school, and I fulfilled that by working at the gym. When I was able to get a job, I didn't want to work in the childcare like all the other kids my age. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just wanted to learn more about the business. I got a job at the front desk. I've never worked for more encouraging, caring, and selfless people than Allison Boyd and Shannon Elkins, the ladies who ran the gym. I started taking these fitness classes with them and working with a personal trainer, and that is how it began. I was and still am a little bit nosy, so I soaked up all the information I could, asking everyone questions all the time. How do you do this? What are you doing this for? Why are you doing this? Always wanting to know and learn more. In 2001, when I was 19, I was a certified personal trainer and I taught group exercise, and I was the member services manager at the gym. And that was the year I attended my first DCAC Fitness Convention. I went along as a staff assistant to help Allison and Shannon at the conference. There were 3 people that founded DCAC in 1991, Charles Little, Suzanne Olson, and Mary Lee Herman. They founded it to fill a need in the industry. They hired educators to bring the latest trends in fitness and research to help instructors and trainers further their education and satisfy their certification requirements. Allison and Shannon, the ladies I worked for, had presented step and high-low classes at the very first DCAC, and they had just become owners of the business. They ran the event for several years with former owner and founder Suzanne Olson. The first time I went, I just fell in love with fitness. I knew at that moment that I needed to be involved in this conference at somehow in some way. It took me a while to navigate how I was going to fit in. I wasn't the fitness presenter. I definitely tried that. I was fine just teaching classes at my local YMCA, but I was not the person who was going to be on the stage teaching all the fitness professionals. But I was really, really good at organizing. I mean, the most OCD, neat freak person you could ever meet. And so I figured out I was a behind the scenes person. There wasn't really an opening at first because it was just a seasonal event. We just had one event every year, and that was okay. For several years, I just attended as a staff assistant, doing my best to be helpful and soak up all the information I could. I was still working at Club Fit in different management roles and still training and teaching and learning everything I could. In 2006, I was hired as the registration manager for DCAC Fitness. With the job still being seasonal, I worked 3 other jobs locally just so I could do what I like to do. Allison and Shannon, with the help of Suzanne, ran an exceptionally smooth event. They were innovative, always moving with the trends in the industry to keep the programming current. They were great mentors who were always patient with me and giving of their time to help others learn. In 2009, we expanded to add an additional event in Houston, Texas that we held for 5 years. We also have had several smaller events in our hometown of Richmond, Virginia. I had some experience doing the books at the gym I worked at. So in 2010, when their dad retired, I took over the business manager position. In 2011, Allison decided to move on to a different path and gave me the opportunity to buy half the business. For the next 8 years, I worked with Shannon running DCAC. Our events are different because we're like family. DCAC is not a big company with a lot of employees. It was pretty much just me and Shannon and our friends and our family. I answer the 1-800 number and the emails. We coordinate and run the entire event. And I feel like it makes attendees and presenters and exhibitors feel like part of our family because we're incredibly involved with everything.
And I just want to say, just to chime in a little bit here, anytime I email, text, or reach out to Jamie, like literally, she gets back to me within minutes. And there's times on weekends where I just email her just to send her something and she'll get back to me. And I'm like, Jamie, stop answering your email. Stop answering the phone. So one of the lessons I hope you take from here is, one, it takes a lot of hard work and time, which Jamie, you'll share that in a little while. However, also, you need to create barriers and boundaries in your life so that you're not doing everything, so you can actually enjoy time with your family and friends when you're on vacation. However, go ahead.
I do. So during those years, I was married, I bought a house, and I had 3 children. Everyone goes through trials in their life, and I have had several, just like everyone, but this one hit me like a ton of bricks. In August of 2017, my world was flipped upside down. I was 20 weeks pregnant with our surprise baby when we went to the doctor for an ultrasound. The doctor found a heart defect and some other things with our daughter, Julie, that pointed towards Down syndrome. This was a week before our annual DCAC event. They had scheduled me for a cell-free DNA test and an amniocentesis the day before we were to leave the event. Shannon waited for me at the doctor, and we drove up to the hotel to start the event. I got the call from the doctor the next day that confirmed Down syndrome. It was really devastating news at first, but I realized that it was because I was really uneducated about Down syndrome. I realized that this was happening, and I could either sit by and let it happen or stand up and face it head on. So I immediately started researching everything I could to find out everything so I could be the best advocate for my daughter. I set up an auction at the event and started a fundraiser for the Down Syndrome Association of Greater Richmond. Everyone at the event, the presenters, sponsors, exhibitors, and attendees all lifted me up. But my faith in God is really what carried me through. Although it was quite the emotional roller coaster, we got through the event successfully. And then I had a couple months of downtime just to sit on bed rest and have several false alarms before Julie actually arrived. In November of 29th of 2017, Julie was born. She was diagnosed with transient myeloproliferative disorder, a leukemic blood disorder. We just needed to monitor her, and then she could go home. We spent Christmas at home, and everything was really difficult, but manageable. The day after Christmas, I took her to the ER because she wasn't eating. That's when she was diagnosed with an infection. Over the next 4 months, I lived at VCU Medical Center with Julie, while my husband and 2 children, Jackson and Annie, were at home. Julie was a really medically complex child. She had chemotherapy for her blood disorder, cardiac catheterizations, open heart surgery, and so many other procedures, it's hard to name them all. Shannon, my business partner, and I had been doing a lot of behind the scenes work for the DCAC conference to be held in August of the following year. I had my computer at the hospital, and I worked a lot with Julie on my lap. I just got her up and all of her cords and everything and just set her on my lap and put my computer there and just started to work. I held her every chance I could get. We had to be really creative with planning the event since my office was at the hospital. We got through opening registrations, writing the contract, finalizing the schedule. All of the normal business had to keep going even though I was going through a personal crisis. I guess you could say that that's a little bit of a downfall of having a small business, is when something happens, you just have to keep going no matter what you're going through.
Can I
On
stop
April,
you? Can I stop you again?
yep.
And just for those of you that don't know Jamie, maybe Janice and I have been presenting for you guys for maybe 5 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And during this time, like, we knew nothing that was going on. Like, Jamie was like business as usual, and so it just goes to show you a little bit of the resolve, the perseverance, and the commitment that you have and your team has to making a great event, even though you're struggling and going through this personal crisis. I'm not a parent, so I can't, I can empathize, but I don't understand what it's like. But I can't even imagine like trying to care for a sick child and then also carry on a business and just carry it on like, it's just business as usual. Because, in our industry, we see a lot of people with a lot of drama over like nonsense stuff, and here you are dealing with, something as significant as you can deal with in everyday life or in one's life. And you were just carrying on like business as usual and making it a great event for everybody else. And again, that speaks to the selfish nature that you have and your sacrifices that you've made to the people that you serve. So we truly appreciate that.
Thank you. On April 8th of 2018, one of Julie's many doctors came in the room and said she wanted to run more tests. She said, I think if we get the results I think we're going to find, she thought she had some advanced lung disease that was really hard to diagnose. They were doing so many tests, it was hard to keep up. She said, I think if we find the results I think we're going to find, we're going to be talking to you about how you want to support Julie for the rest of her life. And I just sent her out of the room. I wasn't really nice. I said, I don't think so. I chose life. When you find out that you have a baby with Down syndrome, they ask you repeatedly if you want to abort your pregnancy. But I chose life for her. I told the doctor to write it in my chart so they would stop asking me. I chose life for my daughter, and I told the doctor that day that my God was not going to make me choose again. Said if he wants to take her and he needs her in heaven, he is just going to take her. There's a lot more to that part of the story, but that night, I just kept thinking about the conversation over and over again, and I changed the way that I prayed. Instead of saying, God, please save my baby, please make her better, please let us have a normal life again, I prayed that I know you have a plan, God, please, I'm praying to be strong enough to handle whatever you have in store for me. And I don't want her to die, but don't keep her here for me. That was just the biggest thing that happened, that I just kept saying over and over again. So many nights, she eventually got intubated, and so she had a breathing tube. And so every night they woke you up at 2:00 to do the x-ray to make sure that her breathing tube stayed in the right position. And so many nights I would fall asleep praying, and then I'd wake up and be like, amen. I don't know what happened. I fell asleep, so many alarms, all these things were happening. And that night I changed, and I just said, I know you have a plan, but let me be strong enough to handle whatever you have in store, and don't make my child stay on this earth suffering because I can't handle it, because that's not what a mother should be. And that night was so peaceful. The only time I woke up was one time when they came to do her x-ray, and the next morning her heart stopped and she died. And I guess the main thing I want you to take away from the story is how I had a foundation of faith. Everyone faces trials in their life, and I don't believe that anyone has a harder or worse trial than anyone else's. It's just different for every person. But I do believe if you have a foundation of faith, if you realize that God is present in your life, then your trial will become bearable, because God is always present, and we just need to acknowledge him. I know that personally, a lot of people said what Dr. Osar just said, like, how did, you just kept going. And I felt like because I had that foundation of God in my life, the alternative was worse. Like, what am I going to do? Just sit here and cry and be sad and have a pity party? I mean, it's not like I didn't. I totally did. But then I got back up and just kept plowing on, because the alternative of going down that path of why is this happening to me and this is so awful and where is God in my life was just worse than just acknowledging that he was there. And I'll give you a Bible verse. Joshua 1:9 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Every time something traumatic happened, God had my support system in place, so I was never alone. There was always family, friends, doctors there, and God was always with me. So the 2018 Fitness Convention was amazing. Everybody there rallied around me to have a huge fundraising event in memory of Julie. We raised over $10,000 for the Down Syndrome Association, and we had a great event. The 2019 event was even better. I really focused on the relationships that we had with our sponsors and presenters. At the event, I spoke with several people about possibly expanding our events to a different location. It was at that point that Shannon decided to move on to a different path and gave me the opportunity to become sole owner of DCAC Fitness. On the drive home that event, which is 2 hours, I came up with a plan to make that happen, figure out how I was going to buy this business from her and how I was going to host our first annual event in Seattle. My plan was unique because of the relationships that I had created with people over the years, and especially with the sponsors and presenters. I really enjoy what I do, and so I came up with a plan to partner with people to try to make it beneficial for everyone who was involved. I hit the ground running, and by December of last year, we had the PNW FitCon on the books for April 3rd, 2020. I had already finalized all the details for that event, plus the DCAC event to be held in August of this year, and everyone was contracted and registration was open and all was going super well. And then COVID-19 hit. We ended up rescheduling the PNW FitCon. We're still hoping to hold it in November, the in-person event, because it's a lot smaller event than the DCAC conferences. But it was difficult to figure out how to reschedule because you have to deal with the venue and figure out if they're going to let you out of all the hotel negotiations. And it was not just about what I wanted to do. We had to take everybody into consideration and make sure we were doing the right thing to be safe. So we canceled that event, and so hopefully we'll go off. If not, we'll figure something else out. For a while, I just stayed quiet about the DCAC event. No one really knew what was happening with COVID and how long it was going to last. And I was certain by August that it was going to be done and we'd be back in person, certain to the fact that I didn't apply for any of the small business grants, loans, or anything. So I was like, how could this go on so long? And we were all wrong. Then all of a sudden it was May, and I had to decide what to do regarding the cancellation. So with the support of some amazing people, one of them being Dr. Osar, I decided to take the event virtual. This would be the 29th DCAC Fitness Convention and my 19th year being involved. It was a really hard decision, but it was one that was definitely necessary to keep everybody safe. So when you have done something for so many years, it just runs like clockwork. We changed the schedule, we changed the programming, we changed the timing, we changed the people at the trade show, but for the most part, you hire the sound company, you hire the hotel, you contract the sponsors, it just goes off smooth. And I'm really organized, and I didn't realize what an undertaking that going live would be, or virtual. I had to figure out the virtual platform, still learning about Zoom, write up new contracts, upgrade my website, figure out how to integrate a store in my website, figure out how to post the live videos after the event. And I like to do everything myself because I don't like to pay people to do it. And that becomes a problem when you have to learn new things because you're like, oh, let me learn how to write HTML code. But we worked it out and all is going well. But just to, give you a little bit of background about the new event that we're doing.
Hold on. You just shared so much information. Oh. And yes, we will get to the live event, or I should say the online live event that's coming up here in a little bit. So, and we're very excited to be part of the first one for you guys and be a sponsor of the event as well.
Yeah.
So one of the things you talked about, and I think is, I want to share a quote with you I actually just posted this on Instagram, and I'm sure you're familiar with her, Immaculate Ilibagiza.
Yeah.
She's a survivor of the Rwanda Holocaust. And first of all, I just want to say your story is amazing, and there's so much more there. And I need to hear more of your story, and I'm almost lost it there. So I don't know how you're telling your story without losing it. But again,
I cried all the tears. There's no more.
So I appreciate you sharing that story. And this is a quote I posted today. But I came to learn that God never shows us something we aren't ready to understand. Instead, he lets us see what we need to see when we need to see it. He'll wait until our eyes and hearts are open to him. And then when we're ready, he will plant our feet on the path that's best for us. But it's up to us to do the walking. And one of the things, again, that I admire so much about you is you just keep going. And like I said, you never let anything get in your way. And it wasn't like you weren't struggling. It wasn't like you weren't suffering. It wasn't like you weren't crying lots of tears behind the scenes. And I truly appreciate, everything that you've done and you stand for and what you're about. And that's why Janice and I are all about supporting you and your organization. Can you talk a little bit more about faith? Because to me, faith comes in many different forms. I have a good friend that he's a Muslim, and again, one of the things we talked about just last week, because I'm like, I want to understand, the Muslim faith a little bit more. And he talked a lot about faith. Can you talk about faith and a little bit more about what that means to you?
So I grew up going to church. My parents just took me. That was just something that we did. I learned all the Bible stories, all about the Bible, my whole life. Never stopped. Was really active in the church. Still am. I'm the Christian education leader on the session, and just do way too many things. But it's important to me, and especially this time and my whole life, I've realized that, just like I said, having that foundation of faith, just learning more. Like, I remember going to a Bible study that Allison at the first gym that I worked at ran. And I was maybe 19 or 20, and I went to the Bible study, and she was just starting her faith journey and learning the Bible stories. And I remember taking it for granted, like hearing these stories for the first time and thinking, like, how have they gone through their whole life without hearing this? This is scary. So I feel like it doesn't matter where you are in your life or how old you are, but if you just learn more, if you just research, read the Bible, find some people that know a little bit more than you to teach you. Mm-hmm. I just feel like that having that was such a huge part of my journey, because I never once questioned, why is God making me go through this? And some of that was like self-talk. Some of that was just saying, okay, well, God's not going to give me anything I can't handle. Like, that's something that people say. So I'll just like fake it till you make it kind of thing, I guess. It's hard to put into words, but I definitely just feel like having that foundation, knowing that God is really, truly not going to give you anything that you can't handle, and not give you things until you're ready for it. Like, if he had taken my baby when she was first born, I wasn't ready for that. But going through all of these things and all of these trials with her helped me to grow as a person. And then when I was ready, I said, okay, I'm going to give it up to God. And that's what you have to do with things in your life. But I just encourage people to start your faith journey wherever you are in your life, because just learning and diving in to scripture and diving into worshiping, you just have that peace that only God can give. I'm not a really good speaker on my feet, which is why I don't speak at the conferences, but I feel like that there were many times when I'm like, okay, well, the other pathway of, why is God doing this to me? I don't believe in God anymore. This is not right, was too scary to me. And I knew that God was in my life, and he's in my heart, and he's there. And so I just went, okay, this is the path I'm going on. And I'm not saying it definitely wasn't easy, and it definitely wasn't like I didn't cry and wonder why things were happening. But I just kept saying, I'm going to stick to this. This is what I know. This is what I've been brought up with. This is what I believe. And that will help me in my trial.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. And first of all, I'm going to say, yes, you are a good speaker on your feet, so you don't have to apologize for that. We'll talk about that off air. The other thing,
Very kind.
the other thing I think is very powerful from what you said is, especially like today, especially in our country right now. I mean, it's all over the world, but now it's sort of hitting our country. Like, so we got COVID. A lot of people maybe have had their health affected, or I have a good friend whose grandfather died from COVID. So we have that situation, and then we have the civil unrest. So people think like, oh, it's not fair. You're this color, or this status, or this and that. It's just not fair. And one of the things, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. Maybe you can't. So, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Is people think that if I believe in God, for example, if I'm a God-fearing person, then why is this so unfair, right? Why is God doing this to me, or allowing this to happen to me? And what I love about what you said is like, God is using this for me. He's not doing it to me, but there's probably a lesson for me to learn in this. And can you just talk about that a little bit? Because I think it's beautiful what you said.
I definitely feel like everything is used as a lesson. It just goes back to God's not going to give you anything you can't handle. My mom used to always say that to me. And, my parents were there at the hospital all the time. My 4-year-old says, remember that time I lived with grandma? I'm like, what? Like, you didn't, grandma was raising you for 4 months of your life. And my 7-year-old, who was 5 at the time, we went to counseling, and we talked about that, and he wrote a letter to Julie in heaven. But I feel like that all of these things, all of these trials, everyone who went through them, my sister is a NICU nurse, and she was right there in the hospital with me all the time. I would go down from the PICU where Julie was to the NICU to eat dinner with my sister at 1 o'clock in the morning. I think that all of us who were there have something to learn from this, and it's making us a stronger person or stronger people, just because we're, going through a trial. And I don't know. That's all I got.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because one of the things that, I asked you to like sort of narrow down the 3 things that people can take away from this. And you give me a long list, but I'm like, just give them 3. And one of the things that you mentioned was, number 1, your faith, and along with faith, also family and friends. And I think that's very powerful also, that when you're going through these types of situations, and God forbid, I hope nobody has to go through this, like the loss of a child, right? Because like I said, I don't have children, but I have heard just like it's the worst thing that you can possibly go through, or one of the worst things you can ever experience as a parent. But the other thing is you had your faith there, but you also had your family and your friends there. And can you talk a little bit about that? What you learned during that experience of having like those people in your life, and even your community of fitness colleagues.
Basically, just if I didn't have them, I wouldn't have been able to keep running my business. My sister is like the biggest blessing in my life, and my parents and my in-laws, like everyone was there. Everybody from the Down Syndrome Association, who I also work for them now. People just wanted to be there, and they wanted to hear more, and they wanted to know everything that was going on. But it was a lot. She had a lot of issues and a blood disorder, and she had chemotherapy when she was like a month old. But I didn't want to share that because she didn't have cancer. And I was like, well, this seems like a lot of just too much to share. So we'll just share little snippets. And I feel like if I hadn't had those people there, I wouldn't have gotten through at all. Like 100%. I don't know where I'd be, but God put those people in my life because of that. I mean, he put my sister there at the hospital, helping me tell the doctor, no, I'm not going to sign that paper because I don't think you're right. Because, when you're in the intensive care unit, there's so many doctors working together that, the heart and the lungs, they fight all the time. They don't always agree. And so, God made my sister a NICU nurse so that she could help me deal with what was happening in my life. He, my kids are really close to her. Um, she's like a mother to them. My parents are like family to them. My in-laws are, we're a really close family. And I think that God made that happen before this trial came, so that when we had this situation in our life, that we could deal with it, because everybody chipped in. Because I didn't live at home for 4 months. I slept at home twice a week for 4 months. And so you can imagine the toll that took on my 5 and 2-year-old. But
For sure.
it was something that I felt like I had to do, because if I didn't, like, I had to be with Julie at the hospital. And so God put all these other people in my life to help me. Like, it takes a village. That's a true story.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But if you want me to go into the 3 take homes, is that what you want?
So that was number 1, right? Faith, family, and friends. Give me a second one. You talk about working hard and always learning, like keeping an open mind to learning. Talk about that a little bit.
I mean, from the minute I was 15, like, I want to know, and I want to be the very best at what I can do. And no, I'm not great at everything. Everybody has different talents, but I just try to always keep learning, always listen, try to be a good listener. Sometimes I talk too much. I try really hard to be a better listener, because that's how you can learn. And I don't think that it necessarily has to be formal education. I mean, formal education is wonderful and great, but there are so many other ways that you can learn or supplement your formal education, by doing certifications if you're in the fitness field, by going to continuing education to make you better at your craft. I just feel like education is so important, just because everything in the world changes all the time, and you have to be able to keep up. I mean, I had to, over the past month, learn how to do a Zoom, learn how to put my little logo in the corner for when my event rolls around. Just always learning and always seeking knowledge, and to the point of being nosy. Like, how do you do this? What do you do? Like, that's the little person that I was when I was 15 at the gym. What are you doing? How do you do this? Well, let me do that. I can do that. And I think that maybe that was a little annoying, but it's helped me. It's helped me become the person that I am today. And I just feel like you always have to keep learning and work hard. And I have this full-time job, and I also manage a restaurant, and I'm also the special events coordinator for the Down Syndrome Association, and I teach classes at the YMCA, and I'm the Christian education leader at our church. And I have a family, so I just find little snippets of time. Like, I'm not working all the time. Yesterday I sat on the beach for like 5 hours, and I did not work. My phone was in the car the whole time. But I do, because I have all of these things that I do. Whenever I have a minute, I try to check my email and answer texts and be available, because I have little snippets of time. I have like little moments of time that I have to work to keep these things running, so that I can still be present with my family. And I think if that's the one you chose, oh, it isn't the one you chose, so I'll work that in too. Work really hard, but also make time for your family.
Awesome. Absolutely. And another thing that just came to mind as you're speaking about this, as you do like all these amazing things, is like you volunteer. I think you said you volunteer, or you're coordinator for the Down Syndrome.
Well, I did get hired there. Yeah.
You got hired.
I volunteered for a while, but then I got hired.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And I have to say, or I should say, I'm going to ask you, I'm sure you've met a lot of amazing other parents that are going through the same thing. And now that you've had that experience, you can be a different level of support. Like, I could support them, but I haven't lost a child to Down syndrome, so I don't know what it's like, but you do. So you know exactly what these parents are going through. Can you talk about that a little bit as well?
Well, I guess first of all, normally children with Down syndrome don't die. Like, that's not
right.
Unfortunately, that was Julie's case, and she had the heart defect. 50% of children with Down syndrome have the heart defect, and hers was just very unique. It was like right on her tricuspid valve, the ventricular septal defect. So it didn't do what they think it was going to do. They thought it was going to close up and everything was going to be fine, but it didn't. So there is not a lot of people that have children with Down syndrome that die, but they are, immunocompromised, and all of them are more susceptible to get illnesses. So especially during a time like this, you know, they have to be really cautious. So we're working on how to take that event, do partial virtual event if we're and able to have a live event if we can. But it has helped. You know, you never want to say, I know what you're going through, because no one wants, that's not what. I think the person who said it the best was one of our friends who we're not super close to, but just came to the funeral home and was like, I don't really know what to say. And I was like, that was perfect.
That's
Because you didn't
perfect.
say the wrong thing. You didn't say, you know
Right.
what I'm going through when you don't.
Right.
And you didn't try to minimize it, or then you didn't make it too dramatic. You just said, I don't know what to say. So, you know, it's definitely helped me relate to other people who've gone through this, this thing. And it's not a group that anybody wants to be a part of, but life happens. And I feel one of the reasons I feel compelled to talk about it and talk about my faith with it is because I think a lot of people have lost children. And don't talk about it. They've lost children to miscarriages or to birth defects or car crashes, and you know, people talk about it more when it's when the child is living. But a lot of people lose children before they even get to this earth, and I think that was one of the important things for me to share, was that my faith in God has helped me, and other people are going through this, and like if that little girl in my life has shined a light on for so many other people. Like if she can be the way that I help other people find God, then my job is done, I feel like, because that ultimately that is, you know, the goal is to help people find their way to God so that they can have peace in their life. And I feel like she's been shining a light and still will. And maybe, you know, that was her purpose on this earth.
It's amazing. And that reminds me actually of my favorite quote from Martin Luther King Jr. He's like, use me, God, show me how to take who I am, who I can be, and what I can do, and use it for a purpose greater than myself. And it sounds like that's exactly how God's using you right now. So
yeah.
it's really amazing.
And I've gone back and forth. I mean, I think last week after I did my first webinar, I had a talk with my husband, and I'm like, do you think people know that like the reason that I'm doing this, it's to help people. It's not to advertise my event. It's to talk about my story and how you can overcome things. And, you know, he said, there's going to be people out there who think that, but as long as you're doing it for the right reasons in your heart.
Absolutely.
And I do feel like that. You know, it took me a while. I didn't share the story until this past January at a women's conference. And then I sang some songs, and that was really cool. I love doing that. And
that's fantastic.
That was like all centered around worshiping and finding God and finding what your purpose is in life, just like that what you just said.
Yeah, awesome. That's fantastic. So let's finish up with the last thing. So you talked about faith, family, and friends, working hard and always learning. What's the third thing that you would give them?
Believe in yourself, and having confidence in your work and your life is really imperative. And it took me a really long time to learn this. But you have to know, and my mom tells me this all the time, is if you do your best and you try hard, then that's all you can do. And then you have to give it up to God. You cannot worry about things. You cannot worry about what you did or what you said. As long as you are doing the very best you can, then good things will happen. And they might take a while, and some crappy things might happen first. But you have to have the confidence in yourself. And I feel like by being in the business that I'm in and putting in the effort and doing a good job or doing my very best, I have gained the support of other people, and I've surrounded myself with like-minded people who believe in me too. And sometimes you have to do that as you surround yourself, and until you surround yourself with people who believe in you and who lift you up, and then at some point you become someone who does that for other people. And and I'm 37, and I felt like for the past like 5 years, like, okay, I need to be sharing. I need to be helping other people like I've been helped along the way. And that was another reason for sharing my story, is maybe it'll help somebody.
Absolutely.
Because you can't just be a taker, you have to be a giver too.
Yeah.
I don't
One of the
know. This
things,
isn't scripted.
no, 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 this is beautiful because one of the things you and I talked about real briefly in the beginning, we'll talk about this a lot more, is there's only one thing that differentiates any of us, really. Like we're all very similar, right? We're human beings. We're on planet Earth, and the one thing that does differentiate us is our personal story. We each have our own personal story, and you sort of mentioned that in the beginning of today, that you don't know what somebody else is going through, and nobody else can know what you're going through unless you share that personal story. And it isn't a draw to attention, like, look at me, poor me, feel sorry for me. It's so that you can help other people that are struggling with some of the, maybe they haven't lost a child, but maybe they lost their business. Maybe they lost a loved one to COVID. Maybe they're struggling, emotionally or financially, or in a bad relationship. And your story can help give them a little bit of inspiration, hope, and have faith, or maybe reconnect with God, because maybe they had God in their life and they lost it for whatever reason. And this is an opportunity for them to reconnect with God. So that's why I wanted to have you on here to share your personal story. I didn't know that all of this was going to come out of it, but I figured as we started to talk more, a lot of this would come out, and I am 100% right there with you. And Rahul says from India, he's on here from India. He says, yes, it is very hard to lose anything, and especially somebody close to your heart. So again, you're touching people all over the world with your story. Oh wow! And he actually says he lost two of his children. So again, so it's the ability to come together as a community. So whether we've lost a child or haven't lost children, we can all connect and we can feel the empathy for you and for people like Raul who's lost two children and say, hey, you have us here as your support, and that's one of the things you talked a lot about as well. Awesome. So it's really been great. Really, really great. And thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
And
you.
and now let's talk about the event and
Oh gosh. Okay.
let's turn our attention to the DCAC online event.
So one of the things we did when we take it virtual is we split it up over 3 weekends. So instead of having, we know, like,
Hold
for
on.
example, right now.
Hold on.
What?
This is what you and I will be talking about. First, tell them what DCAC is all about, because sometimes some of our community doesn't even know, aren't familiar with you,
Okay.
and or DCAC. Tell us about DCAC, the event. What makes it special besides you? Because I know you make it special, and your family, your husband's, part of the event as well. So, and your sister. Tell us about the event and why you started it, and then we'll go into the online component of it.
Okay. So I didn't start it. 29 years ago, 3 people started it. And I believe I briefly touched on this earlier, to fill a need in the industry, to help trainers further their education, satisfy their certification requirements, and learn about all the newest trends and changing research in the industry. And so basically, if you are a group fitness instructor, a yoga instructor, a nutritionist, a personal trainer, anyone who has a certification that has to get continuing education credits, you can come to our event to satisfy those requirements and learn from inspiring people such as Dr. Osar. So in 2000, this year will be the first event as me being the sole owner, and this is just the year that COVID happened to hit. So normally we run the event at a hotel. You get a reservation at the hotel, or you drive there every day, and you run the event from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., where you just get classes all day. Some of them are workout classes, some of them are workshop classes, some of them are lectures. There's a big trade show that goes along with it. And it's just, I fell in love with it because you just go and you get inspired. You surround yourself with people who are very inspiring and good at their craft, like I was talking about before. So you just get lifted up. You want to do and you want to be and do better all around. So that's normally how we do it at the trade show. So when we decided that we had to go virtual, we had to figure out how to set ourselves different from Idea World or the SCW Fitness Conferences or CanFit Pro, like all of the events that are much like ours that provide the certifications and the continuing education. So we spread it out over to 3 weekends. So instead of just like right now, sitting in front of your computer for an hour, instead of having to do that for 9 hours a day for 3 days in a row, we're doing 4 hours Friday, Saturday, the following week, Friday, Saturday, and then the following week, Friday, Saturday. And the best part is all of the sessions are going to be recorded and available for 90 days after the conference. You can earn between 12 to 18 hours for continuing education, depending on who your certifying body is. And we have lined up some amazing speakers to deliver fitness education, as well as several sessions on how to reinvent yourself as a fitness professional in the virtual world. We're going to have the virtual trade show. And so all of the classes that provide the education, you have to sign up for. But the trade show, we're going to have each person stream, kind of like Dr. Osar is doing right now. So the trade show really will be open to the public. So if you don't need your certification credits, or you don't want to attend the whole event, you can still hop on his Facebook and check out the trade show. There'll be like little Q&As or mini sessions. So we're definitely disappointed that we can't be together, but I feel like we've set up a unique conference that will deliver quality fitness education in the safety of your home. And then we are definitely contracted for 2021 and 2022 to be back at a live event. But I do feel like with this world, there will always be a virtual part to that event.
Yep.
I don't know how it will look next year. We'll have to reinvent ourselves again to figure it out. But I definitely feel like, virtual is here to stay. And some of us were forced into it. And I was very resistant at first, but just embracing it and seeing what happens. And, hoping that we're bringing something different to the table so that we can just provide quality education for people.
Awesome. And like I said earlier, Janice and I are super excited to be part of this inaugural online event. And yes, for many years to come, we'll probably be doing something, we'll be doing something online for sure. And we're happy to support great people like you doing great things in the industry. I just want to share a comment from Cheryl Walsh. Cheryl, thanks for being on. By sharing you and your child, you've become gifts from God. So inspired now. Thank you both. So again,
Thank you.
Yeah, your message is reaching people and touching people. So please keep sharing your story. And Rahul from India, he's from India. He's been a part of our community, and he knows about DCAC through us. He's like, this is not so bad because due to this, we are living, even though he's not able to come here in person, he still feels like he's part of this community and will be part of. Yeah. So that's what's great about it. Jamie, I'm going to put you on the spot one more time. One more time. I heard you sing on Facebook one time. I heard you sing live, and your voice is amazing. Amazing. Would you be willing to share like a song, your favorite song, or a song that, I'm putting you on the spot here. So, I would love for
like a whole song, or just like a little snippet?
How about a little snippet?
Okay.
You do what you feel comfortable with. And yes, share why it's important to you.
So this is a song, it's called Blessings. It's by a girl named Laura Story. And I'm not really exactly sure what her story was, but I always, from the minute I found out that Julie had Down syndrome, I sang the song to her all the time in the hospital. And it just really touches my lives. It's like, give me 2 seconds, because I don't want to sing the wrong words.
That's fine.
Even though I've sang it 1,000 times.
That's okay. If again, we appreciate everybody that's on live here or watching the recording. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. This is Dr. Evan Osar. I'm here with Jamie Nichols from DCAC. I'm going to put the link to the DCAC event, and you can save $25 off with the link that we're going to put here as well. So we'll give you that information as soon as we post it live. So whenever you're ready, Jamie.
What if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? And what if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? And what if trials of this life are your mercies in disguise? What if my greatest disappointment, or the aching of this life, is the revealing of a greater thirst this world can't satisfy? And what if trials of this life, the rain, the storms, the hardest nights, are your mercies in disguise?
Thank you. That was wonderful. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
That was a
What?
good surprise. I like singing, so I appreciate
Oh,
that.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, this is beyond what I expected it to be. I want to thank you so much for being on, sharing your story. It was so powerful and touching, and hopefully an inspiration for everybody that's listening to this. Because we need leaders to share their stories, because that's the way to lead. It's not to go out there and create divisiveness. It's to share your personal story and to help uplift others who need that voice, that need to know people out there are also out there struggling and suffering and experiencing loss, and that we're all in this together. Cheryl Walsh says beautiful. So thank you so much,
Thank
Jamie.
you.
It's a pleasure. I'm going to put the link next to this video wherever you're watching this, and you can check out this event at DCAC. Is it DCAC Fitness Conventions? And we'll put our affiliate link here where you can save $25 off your registration. And
Okay.
early bird does end. Is it this coming Saturday?
This Friday.
It's Friday. So this Friday, early bird does end. So again, thank you so much. We
Okay.
appreciate everything you
Thank
guys
you.
do, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Have a great day.